In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a chart here where we have the value of numbers here, or the hours. We have the humidity level here, and then we have also the weather condition defined, and of course on the side we have the degrees in Celsius. So let's start to explore how to do this. So let's start to look how we can customize the scale and do some or add some additional information in here. First of all, make sure you have the boiler template, which you can find here on chartjs3.com getting started. This specific link. Once you're on here, scroll down and copy this chunk of code and you're good to go. Next, if you want to get the source code of this video or many others, check out my Patreon page and of course join the Discord channel. All these links are in the description box. So the first thing what we want to do here is convert it into a line chart. So I'm going to say here, we have here the line, save, refresh. The next thing what I want to do is convert this into a date structure. So we have to add here the date adapter. So go here to chartjs.org, click on ecosystem, and once we're on here, I'm going to scroll down and search for the adapters, and I'm going to use one of these. I would personally use this one quite often because it has one JavaScript file it needs to load and then you're good to go. So I'm going to grab this one here, which is the chartjs adapter date fns bundle minimized JavaScript file. So we're going to put that in here and want to make sure this loads here, save, refresh. Nothing happens yet, but now we're going to work on the data set and the data structure of it. So in here we have this data here. I'm going to remove this, and I will also remove the labels because the labels will be now the date. We're going to make sure that this will become the date, but we'll move this to the very top afterwards. So we're going to say here data. Then within the data here, we make this an array. And now we're going to put in a structure. And in this case, the structure was slightly more complicated than normally. Is we have the date, we have the temperature, we have the weather condition, and the humidity level. So that will mean that we have an x value. And in this case, the x value here, we can say here new date. And it's going to put in a date here, 2023. And this will be October the 1st. And then here for the time, I'll just put in here time, T for the time zone, 0000. Alright. So once I have this here, I want to have the y value, and let's say 15 degrees. Then, what I want to do here is have the weather condition. So I'm going to say weather. And in this case here, I'm going to make this an array, because we're going to put two words in here. Unless we have one word, then it will not be an array. So I'm going to say here, clear sky, comma, and another one is sky. Finally, what I want to do here is the humidity level. And we're going to give this a 70% score. Put a comma here. And what I will do now is copy this and make 3 or 4 more of these. I think that should be more than enough. And then I'm going to change here the time. This will be 1, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And this will be 12, 17, and then 10. And here we're going to say cloudy, but cloudy will not be an array. And later on, this will be important. Cloudy weather. And there we are. I think that will be more than enough. Let's give this 60, 70, 50, and 30. So if I save this right now and refresh, we might get an error. It probably will not understand anything what we're doing here. And I'm seeing data. That's my bad. It should be date, of course. That is the command. You can see it becomes blue immediately. Save that, refresh. There we are. So now we have this date, but you can see here, this is just a value right now. It doesn't understand that this is a time scale. So what I'm going to do here, on the x scale, I'm going to say here, should have a comma down, and then we're going to say here for the x scale, we're going to say type, will be time, comma, then we're going to say here the time unit, the time object, and the unit will be equal to hour. I want to get the AM, PM hours, like that. There we are. That looks absolutely phenomenal. What I want to do here is having some additional space. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put in here a min value, and what I will do with the min value, I'll just grab this one, and then I want to have 30 minutes before this, so that will mean that it must be the day before that. So I'm going to say this will be September, so that will be 9/30 September, of course, and then the time will be not 11, it's 23, it's military time here, 30. So if I save this, refresh, alright, and make sure we have a comma here, save. There we are. So what I want to do is same here at the very end, so we have some space here. We could basically do an offset as well, but I think just having a 30 minutes space between there, that's fine for now. So that will mean for this one, 30 minutes after 3, so that will be 01. But then it will be 3:30 a.m. So this will be 0:30, comma, I guess like that. There we are. I'll accept that. That looks quite decent. So the next thing that we're going to do now is, let's see, we have to remove those grid lines. We don't need these grid lines, and we need to move this up. So let's push that up first. Our X scale, we're going to say your position and set this to the very top. Save, refresh. There we are. Then I want to remove this legend. Let's remove the legend as well. So I'm going to say after the scales, comma, plugins, and I'm going to say your legend, and I'm going to say your display equals false. Save, refresh. There we are. So now we get that. We can remove all of these grid lines here. We don't need them anymore. So what I'm going to do is, basically I will remove all the grid lines, but I want to create here our own grid line. So what I'm going to say here for the X, comma, and then I'm going to say here grid, I'm going to say here display false. Save that. Refresh. Now remove all of these grids. Then what I want to do is, we want to remove the border here. So I'm going to say comma border, and I'm going to say display false. Save, refresh. There we are. So you still see here a line, but it's lighter now because this is related to the Y scale grid. So I'm going to say here, basically we can just grab all of this, copy that, put a comma here, save this, refresh. There we are. So now that starts to look quite nice. This here, the degrees need to be fine-tuned as well. I want to have here the step size of 5 degrees every time as a sequence. So I'm going to say here, comma, and then we can say here, probably need the ticks. And then we can say here, step size. And the step size here will be, let's see, 5 at the time. Save, refresh, there we are. Alright, so we have this now. I want to have here a line at the bottom, so we're going to work on that. But also we want to have the humidity level here, and of course down the weather condition. So we have here most of it already, so we can now start to work on creating the custom plugin. So I'm going to say comma, plugins, and then I'm going to say here weather scale, and the weather scale we're going to copy this and create our own weather scale plugin block. Once we do this, we're going to say constant weather scale equals ID of weather scale, and then we can start to say when would we like to draw this. We will say before the data sets draw, we're going to put in chart arts and plugins. Then what I want to do is start working on it. So what we're going to do here, object destructuring, I need to have the data of the object. If you don't understand what I'm saying here, object destructuring, there's a video in the link in the description box. There's a link. Understanding chartjs object destructuring. Very useful to know. So I'm going to say CTX. I want to have the data. I want to have the chart area. I want to have the top, bottom, left, right, width, and height. We might not need them all. Probably most likely we won't be using them all, but we can always remove them afterwards. I'm just putting it in there out of a habit. So I'm going to say X and Y scale as well. So now we can start to work on drawing here something, but if you look here, I would like to have additional space in here. So to do that, I'm going to give it a padding. So I'm going to say here layout, padding, and then we want to pinpoint specifically the bottom. Let's give it 40 pixels. Save this, refresh. There we are. Now we have some space here. So what I want to do now is start to put in here the humidity level and the weather condition, and of course make a line. So we're going to create that line first. So I'm going to say ctx.save to save all variables above. Then what I want to do is here ctx.beginPath. We're going to create a shape independent of anything else. Then I want to say what is the thickness of this line. So I'm going to say line width, and you can say 0.5 pixel, maybe 1 pixel. It's up to you what you prefer. Then I'm going to give it a color. So we'll ctx.stroke style to give it a proper border color, and I'm going to make this gray with the British A for alpha. Then what I want to do is I want to pinpoint the starting point and ending point. In this case, the starting and ending point will be here all the way to there, basically the chart area from left to right. So I'm going to say ctx.move to define the starting point, and I'm going to say it will start at the very left, and the left comes from here, which is basically this left side of the chart area, and then I want to run it from the bottom. So once I did this, I want to say next. If it's here from the left, I want to go all the way to the right side. So I'm going to say line 2, and then I'm going to say here right, comma, bottom as well. So once we did this, we can say here ctx.stroke to draw this line. Save, refresh, there we are. That looks already quite beautiful. Now what I want to do is create those tick marks, which are basically the lines pointing down slightly. So to do this, I'm going to say here tick marks, and I'm going to work on this. So this is quite easy now because we can use our data for each loop. So I'm going to say here data. This is just accessing the data object in here, and what I want to do is access this here, getting the coordinates of our time zone, or not even the time zone, but getting the coordinates of the hour that the x value is, and that will be converted into whatever this is in pixels. So let's start to work on that. So I'm going to say data.datasets, and then I'm going to say here, I'm just going to assume in this case, because it's a weather chart, that we only have one data set here. So I'm going to say 0. And then I'm going to say here data.forEach. And then in here, we're going to do a for each loop basically. Then we're going to say here for every data point and index, function arrow expression, and then in here, we're going to create a line as well, or a tick mark. So we're going to say here ctx.beginPath, because we want to create a shape or a line that's independent of anything else. And then what we're going to say here, you can get the line width and the color. I guess we can even keep this in here, that's fine. So we have this begin path here. We're going to loop through these points. So let's start to say here for the line width, I think we borrow that from this, so no need to define this again. But what I do want to do here is define the position. That will mean I need to have ctx.move2, and in the move to we need the x and y coordinates. However, here we need to get basically whatever the data point is, and the data point is the date right now of this. So let me just show you that so you have a visual, and then we're going to convert that into a pixel. So let's save this, refresh, open up developer tab, and you can see here we get the whole data object and also humidity, weather, and the x and y coordinates. Or basically here the x is the one that is the data so not the data but the date object, specifically defining the date. So what I want to do is this date, I'm going to say here .x, then I get the specific date only, and you can see here the time zone as well. I want to convert this date into a pixel, and how do I do this? This is why we have this here. The x specifically refers to the scale. I'm going to say in the x scale, I want you to get the pixel for the value. That's what I want. This is a built-in functionality. So basically what I'm saying, I want to get from the value or the time I selected, convert it into a pixel, matched on the x scale. Save this, refresh. We get now all these coordinates here. Beautiful. So now I can start to work on that. So then this here is the first item. And then what is then exactly the y? Well, in this case, it's again the bottom. From the bottom, I want later on going maybe 8 pixels down. So what I'm going to do here, after this, I'm going to say ctx.line2, get this value again, put in there, and then we can say here bottom, and let's say plus 6 pixels. So it will have a length of 6 pixels here down, but you don't see it yet. And the reason why is we didn't give the command to draw. So we're going to say ctx.stroke. There we are. Save, refresh. Beautiful. Now it matches nicely with the data point that we have. So what we could do here is now put a text in here, but we also want to put the humidity level here up. So how do we do this? Well, let's work within this area here, because we have all the data in here, including the humidity level. So what I'm going to say here, the humidity, and then in here I'm going to say ctx.font. So first define the font. We're going to make it bold. I want to make it 10 pixels. And then I'm going to say sans serif as the font family. Once I did that, I want to give it a color. I'm going to say ctx.fillStyle, because I want to make the full color of the font, and let's give it a greenish color or something like that. I'm just going to say green for now. Then what I want to do is I want to say ctx.fillText and start to draw the text. And basically what I need here is the text value, the x, and then the y value as well. So luckily the x value is easy. You can copy that, put it in here. And the y value, I'll get first the bottom, and later on we're going to fine tune this, because this humidity level should be a little bit up. So probably we need to deduct some values. But let's save this and see how it looks. Alright, so now you get here something, but I don't want the text here. This should be soft coded with the humidity level. Luckily, because we have the data point here, it gives us access to the data point dot humidity. Save. There we are. Alright, right now if you look very carefully, it's not really in the center, so let's align it. So ctx.text align center. Save, refresh. Alright, that works better, but now I want to push it up. So let's say here on the bottom, let's say minus 12 pixels. See if that is up. I think we should do maybe minus 9 pixels to give it a decent amount. And I think that looks quite suitable. So now we have this here. The next thing what I want to do is put the text here down, and maybe for the green, I like to use my own green that I have here. Just change that one. Alright. There we are. But now, what I want to do here, sorry, just getting distracted of colors. I guess that looks much nicer. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is, we're going to get here now the tick labels. And the tick labels is slightly tricky, because what do I want to do? Remember, we have some labels, they are defined as clear sky, which are 2 words. And another one is a single word, cloudy. So that will mean we need to play around with those values, and I do this on purpose that it is an array. And the reason why is then I can stack these values up and down. If I don't do that, it will be very hard to recalculate the position. So this is just an easier method for me. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, let's say here we're going to say fill style, and we make it black. I want to force this color into black. That's very important for me. The next thing what I want to do here is create the text. So let's start to work on making the text here. And what can we do with this? We can say here ctx.fill text. I'm going to say here the label, whatever the label is, which is basically, I guess, the weather condition. And then I'm going to get here the x and y coordinate. So we could basically grab these two here for x and y. They're consistent, and I guess we can give this a shorthand, because this here is being repeated multiple times, and that could be more better done. So what I can say here, constant, say x value equals that. Then we can just use this short, reduces the amount of code, makes just more sense. Alright. So that is interesting. Alright, so that apparently is, of course, maybe it needs to be a let. Am I correct? No. Alright, that's interesting. Apparently this is not the way to do it. I'll leave it for now. Undo it, and maybe later on I can just fine tune this. Or am I missing something here? No. Hold on. Alright, I just set it all back into the xlet value. My bad. So why was it giving an error? Because some of these items are not yet defined, like this one here. So when I refresh it gives us this error. The label is not defined. But if I remove that, you'll see it will work again. Alright. So that is the only issue. So I thought there was something else in my code, but apparently it's just this. Small item I didn't pay attention. Alright, so let's give this a text, and then we say here bottom, save that, refresh. Alright, so now I want to push that a bit more down. We can say here maybe for the bottom plus 20 pixels. Save. There we are. So now, of course, what would I like to do here is not say text. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say here it will be the data point dot weather, or weather condition. I think it's weather, so I'm going to use that one. There we are. But as you can see here, if I do this, I will get here the array including the comma, and this just doesn't make any sense. So what I would like to do here is, if it's a clear sky or two words, it should stack on top of each other, or clear and sky below. So to do that, we need to work here, I guess, with another for each loop, or we have to check first, do we have an array? And the reason why is, let me go up. Sometimes we don't have an array. Sometimes we just have a single word as a string value. So what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say if, and I'm going to say array with capital A dot is array with capital A again. And then we put in the array value. And what is the array value that we want to check if it's an array? Is the data point dot weather. So if this is the case, then, so if this is true, what I want to do here is do something like that. And else, if it's not true, I want to do something else like this. Alright. So of course now we might say, what does that mean? If I save this, refresh, we should see here something. Alright, no. Fill text here. This must be fixed now. Alright, so how do we fix this? We're going to say here in the data point of weather, if it's an array, I want to do a calculation where the next word will be underneath the upper word. So if it's clear, sky below. So what I'm going to do here, data point weather dot for each, we can just use another for each loop, and then say here label. It's going to grab the label, and we're going to get here the index. So I'm going to say index, I guess index j. I'm just going to give it like that. And the reason why is because we already have another index here as well. Not sure if we need this. If we don't need this, we can probably remove that and just only keep a single index. But for now, to give it a distinction, or to distinguish these values, that's why I'm doing this. So we're going to do this here, make sure that this will have like that. Alright. Am I correct? No. Like this. Alright. So now we have it. Curly braces, and then we have that one. And all these labels here are nicely in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this, cut that, put it in there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can calculate this properly. So you can see here for each data point weather, we're going to say here the label, and then the label will be in here. Save, refresh. So you can see cloudy works, but the others are now stacked on top of each other. I want to push one up and another one down. So to do this, I have to play around here with the calculation. So we can say here, for example, the bottom. But then what I want to do is I want to say plus another 10 pixels multiply by index j. So if I do this, save, refresh, they will stack, or they will start to be up and down. They are now spread over this single area, which looks quite nice. However, by doing this, it would mean that this cloud is not really in the center. So we can push this a little bit more in the center by just say maybe here about 30, or how many pixels we have to play. I guess 25 would be more than sufficient. So you can see here, by doing that, there we are. And now that looks quite nice here. So now the very last part is probably giving here a degree, like a Celsius or that small circle. So I guess they call it a degree sign. I'm not 100% sure with it. However, let's work on how to do that. That's the more important part of it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going into the Y scale, and then I'm going to focus on the ticks here. And then in the ticks we already have the step size, but now I want to make a callback. In this callback I can say here the value, index, and ticks, although we only need the value here, so it doesn't really matter. Then arrow function expression, and then here we're going to say we want to return a value. So what I'm going to return is the value plus the degree. So if I do this first, it's all same, but now I'm going to say here $, because I'm going to use template literals. I'm going to say here backtick, and in here we're going to use backslash Unicode, so the U, 00, capital B, 0, and then semicolon. Save this, refresh, and as you can see here, now we get this nice degree symbol. That's a small circular symbol on top of, or very close to the upper part of the numbers. And there we are. We have now this wonderful chart here with all of these values being displayed.